Hi, good morning, everyone. I am incredibly nervous, so bear with me, 10 minutes, and we'll get through this together. I want to start by asking you to maybe, if you like, close your eyes for the moment, take a deep breath, imagine you're in the Amazonian rainforest, imagine the vegetation, the rich smells, the sounds of the animals right there in the rainforest. This is where Albina had lived all her life. She's now 16 years old, and it's 1976. Albina left on this day. She's leaving for Lima, the capital of Peru, a city of 5 million people in 1976, to begin her studies to become an engineer. She went to study engineering, and after traveling 1,000 kilometers, she arrived in her new home, Villa El Salvador, a neighborhood of Peru, really a slum, and it's the first time in her life that she encountered trash. Not just trash, but mountains of trash everywhere. As she studied engineering, she began to learn about what was broken about the waste system of Peru. Waste in Peru was collected in rich areas of cities and dumped in the poorest areas. One of her lecturers told her that poor people don't mind the waste, they don't mind the dirt because they are dirty themselves. And Albina, as a first-year student, she was contracted by one of the municipalities in her neighborhood to help improve the waste management system. So she worked there, she was very young, and she began to uncover, first, corruption. Companies were selling very fancy, very expensive waste collection trucks to these municipalities in return for big kickbacks. She also uncovered incompetence. These municipalities were hiring mainly men, and those men were allowed to forge their reports on their duties and were largely found drinking in cafes and restaurants. And she found discrimination against waste pickers, against the people who lived among the trash and made a living out of this. There was this massive stigmatization happening against the poor in Peru, but in particular, the hundreds of thousands of waste pickers. They were collecting the scraps, and one of those waste pickers was Edilberto. He is just 6 years old, and he is out with his mother at 5 in the morning, collecting scraps of waste from a waste heap, fighting off other scavengers who were collecting the fresh waste dropped by the garbage trucks. Later in the day in school, he was mobbed and bullied because soap couldn't wash off the smell of the waste. Later on in his life, he would say that his self-esteem was crushed right there at 5 o'clock in the morning, every morning on that waste heap. He had no self-esteem. He thought of waste collection as a shameful activity. But him and his mother were also doing an incredible service to the environment. They were separating and recycling 1/2 ton of waste every month. And Albina saw that potential. She saw that these people who were living among the waste and were recycling the waste had a lot to offer and were also the people deeply intertwined with waste. So at this very young age, she reframed the problem she was given by the local authority. She said, waste is not a matter of environmental management. It is a mirror of a broken society. And to fix waste is not a matter of engineering, but is a matter of solving the problem of the waste pickers in Peru. And so she imagined a solution. She began to organize waste pickers into small associations, and they were winning municipal contracts because they offered high-quality waste collection. These businesses were largely run by women, and they got rid of the fancy trucks and replaced them with very simple tricycles that were much more adequate to the job at hand. Waste collectors in this way moved their average wage from $3 a day to $15 a day. Thousands of waste pickers saw their lives improved, including Edilberto, who was given the opportunity by Albina's organization, Ciudad Saludable, to have access to training, access to uniforms, and get a loan to buy a waste collection truck with his gang when he was grown up. And they now recycled 30 tons of waste every month in his area. And he's an outspoken advocate for change in this field. These waste pickers, also hundreds of thousands of waste pickers were still in the country, and 87% of these waste pickers were still living below the poverty line. And Albina and her movement, the growing movement of waste collectors who are now calling themselves recyclers, working for a clean Peru agenda, they began to lobby the government. And they said, we need a law to protect ourselves. We need a law to get guaranteed access to municipal contracts. We need to be able to get certified to turn this into an important function of our environmental agenda. After 4 years of lobbying behind closed doors, Albina was speaking on behalf of the movement. They achieved nothing. And so in 2007, 31 years into this movement she was building, they decided that they would change their approach to lobbying, and that the recyclers themselves, Edilberto and the other recyclers, would negotiate and rewrite the laws together with the ministries and the government. And that very public, outspoken movement then began to change the laws. And in 2009, Peru became the first country in the world to publish a law, the Ley del Reciclador, the law of the recycler, that guaranteed health and safety standards to recyclers, guaranteed them access to certification and municipal contracts, mandated that all of Peru's municipalities would contract waste pickers, and also insisted on high levels of ecological standards. And these waste pickers now were able to accelerate the implementation of the law in all these remote municipalities because they had learned how to write the laws. They were able to track down every municipality, make sure that these laws get implemented. And overall, this had a huge impact on the economy and society. So while the waste pickers, former waste pickers, the recyclers, were now critical to the agenda of solving waste and making Peru clean and ecological and building a new industry of zero waste, Albina has taken on the next step on her journey. She is the current Minister of Environment in Peru, leading the Clean Peru agenda. Now, Albina's story is one of the stories that I write about in my book, The Slow Lane. And those of you who were here in the morning heard me say that the critical task for all of us is to create a world in which everyone feels invited and capable to make a difference and contribute to change. And Albina's story really is an example of what it takes to achieve that. And in the book, I write about stories like Albina's that are about ending homelessness in US cities, about ending the diabetes epidemic in Navajo Nation in the tribal areas, about involving prisoners in running the most dangerous prisons in the UK and the German environmental movement, and those of you who are really interested in bureaucracy, about turning public procurement on its head. The thesis is very simple. Approaching change, and really systemic change, something that changes the social and infrastructural systems that are causing us so much pain, requires an approach of care, and this is what I call going slow, engaging people, listening, and making that change happen together. So in the book, I identified 5 slow lane principles, as I called them, that are also reflected, of course, in Albina's story. And I studied about 100 social change movements that succeeded in toppling laws, solving big injustices. And I'll just explain the first couple. Hold the urgency. This was the moment when Albina realized that the expectations placed on her to find a quick fix, an engineering fix to the waste management problem of a municipality was the wrong approach, and that in fact it was a complicated human problem she had to solve. And that gave her the space to then listen to the waste pickers, to follow their needs, and let them lift themselves out of extreme poverty. And that kind of approach of empowering people took 20 years of listening to get to the point where they were earning $15 a day and not $3 a day. And then her stepping aside in 2007 and saying, I can no longer represent you to negotiate on your behalf. This will only succeed if you step up with your capabilities and wisdom to change your own lives by rewriting the national laws. That unlocked everything and made the real change possible. So I'll end here with the idea that if we want to achieve real change, going slow in this way is the fastest way of getting to the right place. Thank you very much.